Thank you for the kind introduction. I fear you're all coming off a break, so it's my challenge to wake you all up, and hopefully I'll succeed in doing so. Let me just say, having previously served as Dean of FIU's College of Law, I deeply respect the academic mission of public universities. I'm also humbled, and I was humbled while I served as Dean, by the trust that students put in our various institutions. And so I wanted to begin in an unorthodox way. It's said that a picture is worth 1,000 words. And so I wanted to start by forming a picture. For those of you in the audience that know it, picture Raphael's School of Athens. For those of you that don't, Raphael painted a famous fresco. It's called the School of Athens. And it basically is a metaphorical depiction of ancient philosophers, mathematicians, and scientists who established the foundations of Western education. It's a wonderful fresco. And I wanted to start with it because those great teachers really shaped the minds of their students in unique ways. They instilled in them a thirst for knowledge and an independence of mind. And in so many ways, our colleges and universities carry that tradition forward by shaping the minds of the next generation, by instilling a lifelong learning, a love of learning, and by helping advance scholarship and research in so many fields. And so I want to begin with the good news. The good news is that universities excel at research. There are now 115 R1 institutions in our nation. APLU members alone conduct more than $41 billion in research. The member institutions of APLU contribute greatly to our understanding of the world around us, with more than 400 Nobel laureates. That's actually about half of all Nobel laureates around the world since the prize was established. That is an amazing number and reflects incredible work and depth of knowledge at your schools. You attract the best and the brightest from your state, across our nation, and around the world. And that's due in large part because of the research your institutions are doing. The quest for knowledge and greater understanding of the world is what inspires students to go to so many of your schools. And so many schools here provide a wonderful opportunity. A college education opens the world to individuals with study abroad programs, exposes students to research and publication opportunities, and enhances students' understanding of the communities and the individuals around them. It leads to exciting careers in interesting fields. But, and there's a but coming obviously, for too many students, college does not open those doors. Rising student loan debt has limited students' options following graduation, or weighed them down for those who don't earn a degree. And so many students start, but they don't finish. And of those who finish, many of them don't go on to find jobs or have their options limited by loans. Our nation has $1.5 trillion in student loans, and the vast majority of debt is backed by the taxpayer. As educators, there's a responsibility to give students the very best education possible. And there's also a responsibility to provide them with skills necessary to succeed in today's and in tomorrow's jobs. To accomplish that goal, I'd argue, we need to teach individuals not just to be lifelong learners, but to be lifelong earners. And these two concepts are not mutually exclusive. So I want to say, I understand the importance of a well-rounded education. I am the product of a liberal arts education. I learned so much when I studied economics, but I also learned a lot when I took typing in high school and when I did accounting. And so I'd like to argue that in some ways we've come to misunderstand or misinterpret the ancient philosophers' approach and the mathematicians' approach and all of those who are depicted in the School of Athens. And I'd like to make 2 points. First, Raphael's idyllic rendition of Socrates standing amongst his colleagues discussing philosophy captures a concept and not a day-to-day reality. In fact, those depicted in the School of Athens didn't live at the same time, much less interact with each other in an idyllic way, discussing philosophy all day. Socrates' students didn't spend their days solely talking. They worked while they studied. They learned not just doctrine, but skills. They were mentees that were taught to be full and independent citizens of a democracy. They left Socrates' tutelage with understanding and with skills sufficient to earn a living. Being a lifelong learner was not mutually exclusive to becoming a lifelong earner. Second, for every Socrates, there were stonemasons who built monuments, shipbuilders who engineered vessels that made commerce and transportation possible, winemakers who harvested grapes and oversaw their transformation into wine, merchants who made goods available to the people. It is only in the last few decades that we've witnessed a concern with teaching practical skills in higher education. In fact, if you look at the original legislation that made your members' institutions possible, the 1862 legislation that created the land-grant university, that legislation actually emphasized skills over doctrine. The legislation specifically called for institutions that would teach agricultural and mechanics arts without excluding other scientific and classical studies. And so the original land-grant universities were set up to teach skills without excluding doctrine. Now, since then, the pendulum has swung to the other extreme, and for a time, it focused primarily on doctrine, and I'd argue is now starting to swing back toward a more balanced approach. And I'm encouraged by the release of APLU's Ready for Jobs report. The report shows that you're thinking about how to balance imparting theoretical knowledge with skills education. And done rightly, this is not skills education for the sake of skills education, but rather a focus on demand-driven education, a focus on partnering with business and industry to ask, where are the jobs of the future? What skills are necessary to have those jobs of the future? How do we teach individuals to be lifelong learners so they're ready not just for the next job, but for the job after that, and the job after that, and the job after that? But that does require a partnership with industry and does require thinking about what are those skills going to be. Now, teaching students to become lifelong learners is a good thing. The thirst for knowledge and understanding is important. Intellectual independence, curiosity, and a healthy skepticism provide critical tools to analyze the world and the scenarios, particularly in a time when things are changing so quickly. I like to say we're in an age of acceleration. The iPhone did not exist 10 years ago, yet so many of you by now have picked up the iPhone, have started reading your email, and really couldn't spend more than 10 minutes without looking at it. It's only been around for 10 years. Stop and think about that, right? So the tools are helpful in a number of disciplines and will be increasingly helpful as we move forward. But teaching skills does not lessen a student's education. I'd argue it enhances it. And so in the area where I had the privilege of being dean in law, students study constitutional law contracts and criminal procedure. These core classes are part of nearly every law school's curriculum. The law, however, comes to life for students when they take clinical courses. Certified legal interns have the ability to make arguments in court under the supervision of practicing lawyers. Certified legal interns can hone their skills, or maybe once they've tried out court, decide that court isn't for them and they'd like to specialize in other areas of the law. Architecture schools follow similar examples. They teach students not only the golden mean and standard heights for ceilings, they not only foster creativity and provide the tools to exercise it, but they also teach students how to build models using CAD software and how to handle physical materials. And these practical applications allow students to apply and internalize the theoretical doctrine that they're taught in class. Practical skills help students connect educational efforts with future careers. In a time when the average time to graduation for a four-year degree is approaching 6 years. And so many students fail to graduate. Connecting students' short-term efforts with lifelong success is so important. I was talking to a member of Congress, and I told this member that I was going to be talking to APLU, and that I was very excited about talking to the four-year institutions. And this member said, "Mr. Secretary, you're not talking to the four-year institutions." And I said, "What do you mean? I know my schedule." And this member of Congress, a senior member of Congress, said, "You should refer to them as six-year institutions." But think about that. Factually, if you look at the average time to graduation for so many institutions, there's an argument to be made there. Wouldn't it be great to connect students with future careers and say, if you graduate on time, this is the job that is waiting for you? What would that do to graduation rates? What would that do to inspiring students to take that extra effort and move through the programs faster? And so one approach to teaching practical skills are apprenticeships. Apprenticeships correct theoretical concept and practical skills in a formalized and methodical way, and they enhance the theoretical with practical and vice versa. Now, many Americans think of apprentices as limited to the trades, and the building trades have used this model for a long, long time. But in reality, apprenticeships provide great pathways to so many careers. Now, just about everyone in this room visits a former apprentice at least once a year, or if you haven't, you should. They wear a lab coat, they carry a stethoscope, and they sometimes give you advice that one does not follow to stay healthy. Medical students learn theory in the classroom, and they learn practical skills in hospitals under the supervision of physicians. And by the time they graduate, they are ready for patients. Other nations use this model across professions. And so in Switzerland, more than half of their bankers come from apprenticeship programs. At the end of the day, whether you went through an apprenticeship program or whether you just got a degree without an apprenticeship, everyone is a banker. Apprenticeships here in the US are underutilized. Less than 0.3% of the American workforce has been through an apprenticeship broadly defined. And that's only a small percentage. So at the Department of Labor, we're looking at ways to expand these apprenticeships. Yesterday, we held the inaugural meeting of our task force on expanding apprenticeships. It's a 20-member task force. And it is focused on thinking creatively to expand apprenticeships across all industry segments. APLU's own Mark Rosenberg serves on the task force. Walter Bumfuss from the American Association of Community Colleges serves on the task force. We've got representatives from labor. We've got representatives from industry. We've got representatives from community groups. And we've got representatives from the public. We're looking for ways to expand apprenticeships broadly across all industries. And here are some thoughts for your institutions as to ways of incorporating apprenticeships or other practical skills. Look at your core curricula. Look for ways to crystallize and complement the application of theoretical concepts for students. This can be in the form of an apprenticeship while in school. It can be in the form of a capstone course. Work actively with companies, labor unions, trade and industry groups to develop and execute educational components of apprenticeship programs in practical ways. And so let me put this in concrete terms. Most universities offer semesters abroad. Many universities offer semesters at sea. Why not offer a semester in public service, or in business, or in industry? Why not offer a semester at a police academy as part of a degree in criminal justice? Why not offer a semester at a public defender's office or a state attorney's office as part of a degree in criminal justice? Why not offer a semester in an accounting firm as part of a degree in accounting, learning real practical skills, and also learning the soft skills that are necessary for a job? Or why not, rather than wait till someone graduates and then place them in a job, place individuals in jobs while they're in school? Rather than suggesting that someone that's majoring in accounting just go find a job, why not work with local accounting firms so that they work at an accounting firm while they're studying accounting, so that their day job, learning, and their night job, working, complement one another? Your own Ready for Jobs report notes that apprenticeships makes it possible for universities and employers to partner to explore a wide variety of new work and learn and experiential learning opportunities. Apprenticeships cannot work without an educational component. The concept is earn and learn, not just earn and not just learn, but earn and learn. And there's no group better equipped to balance becoming a lifelong learner and a lifelong earner than your member institutions. And so I want to go back to the School of Athens and the educators and philosophers that are represented in that metaphorical work. Socrates, Plato, all the sort of the great traditions of the academy. There's one person that isn't represented in that work, and that's Raphael. And thinking back to my art history class, we had a long discussion about why Raphael wasn't there. And I'd like to argue this. He was there. Raphael assembled an incredible workshop of pupils, of apprentices. His workshop may have been, in fact, is thought to have been much larger than the normal workshop of the day, and likely included masters. And art historians will say that Raphael did not do all the work for which he receives credit himself, that so much of it was done by his apprentices, each working in their own teams, almost as subcontractors. And so while Raphael's legacy lives on in his art, it really lived on and grew through his apprentices, his pupils. His influence on his students and their style carried on long after he was no longer producing art. And it lived on because he taught his students not just doctrine, not just how to create depth and perspective, but how to actually perform and produce art. Our colleges and universities have the opportunity to carry on that tradition of the academy, that tradition that teaches the doctrine of depth, but that also teaches individuals to be artisans in their own individual ways. It's not a matter of choosing between methods of teaching, but rather applying methods that work to accomplish a goal as educators, the goal of imparting knowledge in the most effective ways possible. And knowledge is both doctrine and skills. You lead our nation's world-class research institutions, and you inspire the next generation of inquisitive and insightful minds. As you teach theory in books and with vivid classroom discussions, like Raphael, consider ensuring that students learn the practical skills that will prepare them for success in their own right. This is important work. Students trust their future to your institutions. Take that trust and fulfill their goal of learning, but of leaving your institutions with the skills to pay off their debt and to succeed in a world that thirsts for skills to fill an immediate job and that will reward inquisitive minds as they learn the skills of future jobs. Thank you.